Hello and welcome to the Three Questions podcast, where we dive deep into the world of wealth management and connect you with industry experts. I'm your host, Wayne Baxter, Senior Executive Manager at One Capital Management. Now, has a family member or someone close to you been charged with a criminal offense? If so, stay tuned. The financial implications can be as concerning for the family as the charges themselves. What's our topic today? The 3 questions to ask when a family member is accused of a criminal offense. Thank you for taking time to check us out. And if you enjoyed this episode of the 3 Questions podcast, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channels. On this episode of the podcast, we're going to face a crisis that can strike anyone, a family member accused of a criminal offense. Ooh, boy, something nobody wants to think about. Well, with over 5 million arrests annually in the United States, from DUIs to federal investigations, a single charge can spiral into legal battles, financial strain, shattered futures. Knowing the right steps is critical to minimizing damage. And so our topic today is the 3 questions to ask when a family member is accused of a criminal offense. Joining us from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, is Adam Rossen. Adam is the CEO and founding attorney of Rossen Law Firm. It's South Florida's largest criminal defense practice, and Adam's team has turned countless crises into second chances. Adam, great to see you. Welcome to the podcast.
Wayne, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited. And look, anytime I can talk to you, it's going to be a great conversation and a
Yeah,
good day.
well, great segue. We got a lot of cover today, Adam. Holy smokes. But before we get to it, I first want to publicly thank you for inviting me on your Success in Florida podcast. I had a lot of fun, great conversation. So thank you very much for that
Oh,
opportunity. We've actually
always.
posted it on the 3 Questions podcast website. So anyone who wants to go back and check out our conversation, just have to go to our 3 Questions podcast website and you'll find it there.
Yes,
So
and Wayne, as always, you're a star, and you had so much great, valuable
he
information.
touche back at you. I will note that Adam had some makeup work done before the podcast here, so the real star is the guy over there. Okay, before we get to our 3 questions, I think it would be a good idea, because this broadcast, just so you know, this podcast is being listened to all over the United States and Canada. So the folks in South Florida obviously know about you, but for the rest of the continent, why don't you take a couple minutes just to talk about the Rossen Law Firm?
Sure. So, I've been so blessed and fortunate to build the Rossen Law Firm and grow it, and we're continuing to grow it. But we help good people when bad things happen so they can achieve their best future. Now, how do we do that? We do that through expert criminal defense representation and building relationships with our clients and their families. And so we handle state court criminal cases, DUI, domestic violence, sex crimes, robbery, burglary, drugs, murder, really from the Florida Keys up through West Palm Beach, Jupiter area. Now, if it's a large case, we will travel outside and go into other areas in the state of Florida. We just right now have an insanity defense case on a murder charge that is out of Fort Myers, so the west coast of Florida. But primarily, we stick to Southeast Florida. And then for our federal practice that handles primarily white collar crime and healthcare issues, that we do nationwide. So we have cases on the East Coast, West Coast, throughout Florida, elsewhere. And for all those, we take the show on the road. And
Hmm.
a big focus of what I'm doing now is looking to expand our firm. So anybody who's listening to this, who, if you know any great criminal attorneys who are just amazing attorneys, but want to be part of a bigger team and a great organization, that's what we're doing here.
Interesting. I did have a question along those lines. But it was more about collaboration. Do you find yourself collaborating with attorneys around the country? I know, for example, I believe I connected you with a friend of mine here in Southern California, Silva Merchadichian. But is
Yes.
that something you normally do, collaborating with attorneys in other parts of the country?
Right. So yeah, so it depends what your definition of collaboration is. So if it's something where we have a massive federal case and there's going to be 5 or 10 co-defendants or co-conspirators, then yes, absolutely, we will do that. If it's more from the lawyer business side, the mastermind side, the marketing side, the growth side, Absolutely. I actually started a closed private mastermind group of 10 of the largest criminal defense firms across the country. And we
Hmm.
get together in private to talk about the good, the bad, the struggles, the growth opportunities in our criminal defense businesses. Now, if it's a state court case in South Florida, generally, and there's one person or who wants to hire multiple lawyers to represent him. Our firm policy is we don't do that. And the reason we don't do that, it's intentioned because we right now we have 6 lawyers. And so we are that legal team. And I've
Right.
found that a lot of times when you have one person that wants to bring on multiple lawyers from multiple law
Yeah,
firms
two
to
people they
represent that
don't trust.
person, yeah, and it just becomes well, it just becomes an issue of too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right,
So
exactly.
that's, so we really like to stay in our lane and we tell people, look, you have everything you would ever need here because we've built the Avengers. We
There
have
you
the
go.
team.
Perfect. Okay, as you're more than aware, this is a sort of a wealth management podcast. So we're addressing our topic today with kind of a financial perspective. So
Right, yeah.
I do want to take a look backwards historically. Since the time you've been an attorney and been doing criminal defense, have you noticed any correlation between the relative strength and weakness of the economy at any given time as it relates to the types and frequencies of criminal offenses? Do you see any tie in there, or is it completely random?
No, so there definitely are trends. And especially when we're talking about state court cases, which is the majority of criminal arrests in our country, local, municipal, state court, and county court
Right.
cases.
Right.
Yes, when when the economy goes down, typically arrests will go up, whether it's DUI, domestic violence, drugs, different things. Now, whether so my business in a way is recession proof. Actually, my wife's a prosecutor, and I always like to say more of her business is recession proof because people will get arrested no matter what. For me, it's whether or not the people have the means and the cash flow, or the just the money, right? Whether it's liquid or non-liquid, to hire us versus go with the public defender. So
Mhm.
that is a bit of one of the inflection points that we see. And then on the federal side, it's less about the economy and more about who's in control of the government, who the president is,
Hmm.
and what type of white collar enforcement policies we're seeing and what DOJ policies they're really going to enforce. So it's really the president, the attorney general on down to DOJ.
Well, that perfectly segues into my next question, which is really talking about where we are, and there's a lot of uncertainty on many different levels here in the United States right now. So in 2025, are you seeing the number of criminal charges, again, based on the fact that there's so much economic uncertainty, are you seeing the number of charges rising in South Florida specifically at this point in time? Are you noticing that trend at all?
So I haven't noticed that, but the trend that I am seeing again is people just being a little tighter with their wallets. I
Hmm.
know just generally credit scores are down.
Hmm.
Inflation has been so high. And then when you factor that in with, which has been building since COVID, and when you factor that in combined with the uncertainty with the tariffs and everything, it's more than just oh, these products on Amazon are now going to cost us more money, or the next iPhone is going to cost us more money. People are making a decision more based on price, which I understand why, but that we've had a lot of internal discussions. It just means our sales and marketing team needs to do a better job of educating people and building those relationships of why the value that we provide.
Your observation is not wrong because as a portfolio manager here at One Capital, we obviously analyze the economy fairly in depth, and what we are seeing specifically are younger families. Specifically, I will say less established if you want to use some kind of vernacular or term, but younger families we're finding specifically are falling into the category of what you just discussed about their debt ratios are going up, debt service ratios are going up. They are finding themselves with higher debt volumes, and I think that pretty much ties into exactly what you were saying.
Well,
Uh,
it's funny, Wayne. So I'll just give you a quick example. So about a year ago, year and a half ago, I go to Publix and I'm like, my wife, my kids, I have 2 little boys. They love like watermelon. And my wife's always like, oh, just get the cut up watermelon. And I look at this, I'm like, this is now $12 for cut up watermelon. I remember when this was $5. And so I tell my wife, I'm like, I'm just going to go to Costco and I'm going to buy the entire watermelon for
Yeah,
five
and get
bucks,
and get the
you
knife out of the drawer.
know, and do
Yeah.
it exactly. Get the knife out of the drawer and suffer through cutting up the watermelon, right? And if
First world
that's
problem if there ever was one.
exactly. And if I'm noticing that and feeling that, then so many more people must be feeling it as well, and even worse. And so and that was even about a year and a half ago. I was like, wow, like I'm really feeling the effects of this because this is ridiculous what they're charging for cut up watermelon.
Well, eggs were the big topic there for a while. That
Yes,
seems.
I
Well,
heard.
we were talking about it earlier. Bad things can happen to good people, and being charged with a criminal offense, whether or not you're guilty or not, obviously we know this can drain a client's wealth, drain wealth, period. So the reason we have Adam here today is to provide some really much needed, we're going to call it, Adam, and you can chime in on this, some clarity and guidance in how to deal with these matters. That's kind of our goal for having you here. I'm really glad you made it.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so we're discussing the three questions to ask when a family member is accused of a criminal offense. So we're going to start this off. We're going to try to ask these questions from the perspective of a family member who is dealing with, another family member who's been charged. So the first one is, my husband received a letter from a federal agent notifying him that they want to speak to him. How should he respond? Adam, take it away.
Right. Yes. And so generally, when you're dealing with the feds, there is a bit of a higher, more air and more professionalism around them. So they actually will oftentimes send you a letter in the mail saying, "Hey, we want to talk to you," which is kind of odd on the state court stuff because usually they'll just come in like a battering ram
Knock
and
on
just,
your door.
right, they'll do a knock and
Hopefully.
talk, right. And so when you get that letter from the U.S. government or from a federal agent, first of all, a lot of people might ignore it, either thinking it's fake, right? It's completely just some scam, or they might still be in denial. And then you have the third category of the people who are just like, oh my God, this is terrifying. Of course, I'm going to call this federal agent immediately. And all three of those are bad things to do. As hard as it is sometimes to mentally wrap your head around it, you need to just, first of all, calm down and call the best federal criminal defense attorneys you can, and that could be somebody in your area, it could be somebody outside your area, but whether it's a referral or looking online, you need to start getting expert advice. The good news is the cops are not literally at your doorstep ready to arrest you, but they're signaling to you that something's going on. You may be a target of an investigation. You might be a witness. We don't know. And the worst thing that you can do is start calling and talking to them because you're going to be making admissions unknowingly. And you need to have that barrier or that shield between you and the feds or any police officers, and be getting the expert advice, guidance, strategies as well. So it's not as urgent or an emergency as some of the other scenarios we're going to talk about, second and third, but it's very important. And sometimes less is more, being calm and slowing down is more.
Kind of reminds me of the art of war, that every battle is won or lost before it's ever fought, sort of thing. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
what would you say? And this is going back and looking backwards over your career. What's the biggest mistake that someone can make when responding to that request, and how can that end up becoming a financial boondoggle for that person?
Right. Well, some people, I mean, look, people want to, and they're psychologically conditioned to talk their way out of things and comply with authority. They've been psychologically conditioned since we were kids. Think about it, right? Kids talk their way out of things at school. They talk their way out of things with their parents. And they also are taught to comply with their teachers and comply with their parents and comply with police. So you have these two different things that are kind of competing against one another psychologically.
Almost like
But
instinctual, right?
right, right. And so the worst thing you can do is try to defend yourself, because you might be justifying your behavior or defending yourself, and you might be wholly innocent. But now you're still admitting, well, maybe I was there at the scene of the crime. Maybe I at least knew what financial issues with billing Medicare, the doctor that I worked for was doing, right? Even though I didn't do it and I didn't like it, now you might be saying, well, you were complicit in it, right? And different things were, and you're giving them information and admissions because there's no shield or barrier between you and them. And you don't truly know what the law is and what the government or the feds are looking for.
Hmm.
They might have started off thinking you were just a witness, and then you start word vomiting and trying to defend yourself, and they're like, wait a minute, this person's actually guilty of a crime or was complicit in these, or part of the conspiracy. And the standard for conspiracy is so low. I mean, it's so easy for the feds to arrest, to indict, and convict somebody of conspiracy.
And I guess that leads to kind of the implication from a financial perspective, because now, because you've kind of opened your mouth, you're now leading yourself down the pathway to significant potential legal expenses.
Absolutely. And it's also not just what the lawyers cost, but time. Time is money, your
Right.
freedom,
100%.
opportunity costs, right? Whether it's a criminal case or even just a lawsuit, when you're so focused on dealing with this, well, then if you're a successful, let's say if you're a successful entrepreneur, then you're not really focused on your business or the next business, because a lot of your energy is being drained by this criminal case, which could affect your freedom. So there's so many things that can relate back to financial issues when people are
100%.
involved in these cases.
Makes me think about the need for asset protection strategies as well, for
Yes.
how do you protect your liquid assets from being exposed to potential litigation as well. Okay, Adam, thanks a lot for the first great job on the first question. Moving on to question number two. Our college-age daughter was accused of making offensive comments while going through the airport, and she was arrested. What is going to happen to her?
Oh
Adam.
yeah, we see this all the time. Actually, I was flying back from Atlanta yesterday, and every time I go through airport security, I'm always thinking about it. And I, at times, I can have a bit of a smart ass mouth and just, but I'm always like, don't say a word, Adam, don't say a word. Because, in this situation, let's say your college age daughter, she's getting frustrated. She's had a tough day. Maybe she's, trying to go on spring break or come home from college, and there's the airport. It's a mess, and somebody's rude to her, a TSA agent's rude to her, and then she says something like, well, it's not like I have a bomb here, or not like I have a gun in my luggage. Well, you're getting arrested, okay? And you're taking a frustrating situation and you're going to make it significantly worse. So, and we do see those things. And what's going to happen? She's going to get arrested immediately. They're going to take her into, a questioning, basically a room in the airport. They're going to grill her, and they're probably going to arrest her, take her to the local county jail, and maybe the media will pick it up. Maybe they won't. Maybe she'll get lucky, but that's definitely something that the media is going to want to make a news article out of. And just so everybody knows, the media is at first appearance court every single day. They're there. We have, especially in South Florida, we have first appearance court every single day. I've been there on Thanksgiving. I've been there on Christmas, day after Christmas, and and they mine those court appearances for news stories, and so mugshots are
The
going to be there.
defendant flying over the desk of the judge.
Yeah, yeah,
Remember that one from last year?
right. Yes, yes, yes. Oh yeah.
25 years. Like I think he got a 25-year sentence, and the guy literally hurtled himself over the judge's desk. It was
Well, we see things. In some ways, I'm kind of numb to what we've seen, and there's no surprises here, which is sad in a way. It's a sad kind of statement on the world,
so
but yeah, but it's not good. It's a terrible situation.
what can okay, so Adam, you're the expert here, obviously. What can families do in terms of working with someone like yourself to minimize these consequences of an airport arrest, especially, I'm thinking about it from a dollars and cents perspective, of course, but how can we keep the costs down and turn this thing spiraling into some massive bill? Uh,
Right.
because of my favorite line, ignorance is bliss and the mother of adventure. So how can we kind of keep the keep the bill down here and escalating it into something that you don't want it to.
Right. No, of course. Well, and so we a lot of times with our clients, we'll do tiered contracts, levels of representation because look, what I'm going to charge, and we do flat fee, and it's more value-based billing than time-based billing for us. But at the same time, if I can provide immense value and get a case thrown out in 3, 4 weeks, well, fantastic. I'm not going to charge a client what I would if we have to defend this case for 18 months and then have a 2 week trial or even a 2 day trial. So for us, a lot of it is we always are like, look, we equate a lot of what we do to being doctors in a way. And we say, listen, this is the initial exam. I haven't taken an MRI yet. I haven't sent you for an x-ray. We certainly haven't opened you up for surgery. Let me start doing this initial exam. Let me see what we can do maybe in this first 30 days during the charging window. And if we can get this dropped, be that surgeon, get in, fix the problem, and get out with leaving a tiny little scar, right? Then we've done our job. We've helped you achieve your best future. And we don't have to sit there and grind out an all out, ground war in Europe for the next 18 months. Now, a lot of our cases, that's what we do. But if there's an opportunity not to and to save our clients some money, we absolutely do because we're relationship builders with them. You know, we always want to help our clients and their families.
So, Adam, I think that perfectly segues into our third question, which is, what are the financial implications related to being charged with anything from a DUI up to like a federal offense?
Right. So, well, let me talk about DUI because it's a more of a common person crime. It's an everybody crime because it's a mistake crime. So in Florida, DUI is very costly, but it's costly everywhere. Not only do you have to pay for an attorney, right? Good attorneys in Florida could be anywhere roughly from, 7,000 to 10,000. Now you can find cheaper lawyers for 3,000, but
Yikes.
they
I
don't
would.
have this. Yeah. No, no. But but that's roughly what it'll cost for the attorney, but there's so much more. You have to pay, your car's likely to get impounded, so you have to pay that in the tow lot. You're gonna have to bond out of jail. What about lost opportunity cost? What if you're a no call, no show at work tomorrow and you get terminated because of it? Um, you're gonna have to take off work
And
to
you
go to
have
court.
examples of that happening where people, white collar workers, getting a DUI and no show at work, and all of a sudden they get a notice.
Yeah, yeah, what? Yeah, I mean, it happens, or I mean, there's so many different variables, but you have to pay to go to DUI school. You have to pay to go to drug and alcohol treatment. It's not full like rehab per se, but you're going to have to pay for those individual or group courses. And that could be a few $1,000s. If you get convicted in the state of Florida, you have to carry FR 44 insurance. And so in
Can you
most
tell us what
states in
FR 44 insurance is? You might as well give us
Yes.
a quick.
So most states require SR 22, which is a high risk insurance. Well, Florida and a few others take the SR 22 and they say, "We see you there. We're going to raise you to FR 44, which is even higher risk, higher cost policy." It basically mandates that you have to have a $300,000 minimum policy limits for 3 years. And it's a special policy. It's not just a regular 100, 300 policy. And we've seen that go increase your bill as much as 500 a month times 18 months. That's right there, I believe, is $18,000 over 3 years alone. And then you have, the conviction cost, fines, court costs. So we always say all in a DUI can cost $30,000. It's astronomical. And what about opportunity cost of preventing you from getting that raise, that promotion,
Earning a living,
right? Right.
destroying your reputation. Um, that can be, I was thinking about from both yours and my perspective in terms of, you know, you've been charged, right? And what type of, from your, so the, you're sitting in front of Adam now and you're like, what can I do to mitigate the financial impact? And I think you talked a little bit, but if you'd like to add more on that, but I'd like to chime in on this as well, because
Sure.
one of the things I think about for homeowners across the United States and Canada too, this is applicable to some extent there for sure, uh, is emergency money. We don't know what the emergency is going to be. Always thinking, the hurricane or the earthquake or the wildfire or dad, I need some money, right? Or whatever, or mom, but the importance of having access to money, something as simple as a HELOC or a line of credit on your home,
Right.
having liquid assets, because who knows what the emergency, first of all, you can't predict when an emergency is going to happen. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an emergency. You'd know it. You'd be predictable. So having liquid assets available for those short-term immediate hair on fire moments. So uh, any thoughts from your end? And when someone says to you, like, Adam, what can I do to keep the costs under control here? Is there anything actionable that they,
Right. Well, and Wayne, one thing though before that, and again, I'm not a financial expert like you are, but what I've seen over the years, look, we had a client recently who on a very serious case, high fee case, they and we're talking with the financial advisor too, and the client and their family, and they decided instead of selling some of their stock portfolio, they got a line of credit against the stock portfolio.
exactly.
Now, again, that's not my area of expertise, but that
Yeah.
was the decision made by all the people in the room that they were going to use that. So as they
Term
didn't
we
have to leave
use in our
the past.
world, Adam, is like a margin loan. So basically, if it's in a trust or taxable assets, you can actually arrange to borrow against the value of the of the investment account, as opposed to selling the shares.
Right.
Markets are down, you don't want to sell a loss, so you can, depending on the size of the portfolio, you can borrow up to a certain percentage without getting into a risk of getting a margin call because the market tanked or anything like that. But yeah,
Okay.
so
Right. Or
there's
even whole
that.
life policies. We've had clients with
You can
whole
do, yeah,
life.
borrow against your life
No.
insurance, liquid assets as well. There's that as well. Um, so when they come to you though, and they're looking you across the table and say, is there anything we can do here to mitigate costs? Is there anything from a legal perspective that's actionable that you would say to them right
Um,
up front?
well, as far I'm not an asset protection attorney, although I think you were spot
Understood.
on
We've talked
earlier,
about,
right?
I'm thinking more from the standpoint of where you can be
Right.
effective.
So it just really depends because I never our clients are going through some terrible moments in their lives and
Right.
at the same and I always want to be mindful of people and their budgets and different things, but at the same time, it's hard for us to I don't want to cut corners. We're talking about people's lives and freedom. So like I said, when we do flat fees, we usually will do it based on milestones in the case because
Mhm.
if we can get a great result that's a little easier or a little earlier through the process, I just and the firm, we want to give people the benefit of the doubt because you don't choose criminal defense unless you love people and love helping people. But at the same time, what's the cost of losing? The cost of losing is significantly worse. And it's hard because if you're in a car crash and you're injured, the personal injury lawyers, first of all, the barrier to hire a personal injury lawyer is so low. You don't have to pay them money. You just have to sign the contract, sign on the iPad, sign it, with your finger on your phone in the email.
Mhm.
And then guess what? They help you get treatment to make you feel better and they give you money. They're amazing. Everybody loves their PI lawyer, or
And
you
they have the
should.
best stories.
Right. Well,
Don't
no,
ever go to dinner with
I
a personal injury
now
attorney. Best storytellers you ever meet.
I
But
think we have the best stories. I'll disagree, but
fair, okay, I'll give you one and
yeah,
two.
I know where the bodies are buried. But
Yeah. Fair enough.
you, but what we see clients when they've been arrested, they didn't financially plan for this. So yes, there's the intervening negative event, just like a car crash or personal
Right.
injury, but they have to pay money to get out of jail. Now they have to pay money to hire us. And the best we can do is give them back their freedom and vindicate them. We
Hmm.
can never make them whole. We can
Hmm.
never give them money back. So it's hard. It's so much harder for us in dealing with the clients because there are many of our clients are falsely accused or they're charged with something extremely significantly harsher or worse than what they actually did and they're overcharged. And through those processes as well, there's a lot of, you know, just emotions and financial costs to it that we can't replace because our client gets to walk out of the courtroom out of the front door, which is amazing. But sometimes their lives, it could take them years to rebuild their lives, rebuild their portfolios, rebuild their financial lives. So it's difficult. Look, I don't know if you follow the Karen Reed trial, but she's in Boston, and today, the day of filming this, on her second trial, she was just found not guilty.
Hmm.
Her and her family, she was finally vindicated after 3 years, but her and her family are in financial ruin from this. And luckily, she won, and her lawyers stayed with her, and there's tons of media attention around her and how she was falsely prosecuted. But to say that she really won is difficult because, I mean, yes, she has her freedom, and she walks out that front. She just an hour ago, she just walked out of the front door of the courthouse in
Why don't you
Boston.
just give a quick little recap
Oh.
here, just for everybody who may
Yeah,
not know?
it's amazing story. I mean, her boyfriend was a the city of Canton police officer outside Boston. He was killed, and whether whatever happened, she was charged with her murder. I strongly believe, and many people across the country believe, that the Canton police framed her because the Canton police officers were all there. The whole thing does not make sense, any logical sense. Her first trial resulted in a hung jury. HBO had a 5-part special on it. Watch it, it's amazing. The retrial was just going on the last 2 months, 2 or 3 months, 35 days, and just an hour ago, the jury found her not guilty of manslaughter, not guilty of murder. They found her guilty of basically DUI. And
Hmm.
she did admit, I was drinking and driving. And she got probation, and that's what she should have gotten, not life in prison, not, she's not a murderer. She didn't kill him. And, but of course, we still don't know
But
the
there's a
truth.
cautionary tale here because
But
you
there
did.
is.
She's been financially, from, as you said, she's got significant financial reverses.
Right.
Noted. Well, thanks for the breaking news there, Adam.
Yes, of
Uh,
course. I'm here for that.
yeah, you got it. You nailed that one. Okay, you got like almost 2 decades of defending families, in crisis, and I always believe that experience is far more beneficial than someone's opinion. So, based on your opinion, is there one critical piece of advice that you would give the folks listening here today whose loved one faces criminal charges, from the perspective of trying to protect their future and finances? And, what is one step they could take right now to make that
Yes. And so this is based on not feelings or opinions, but real
right, right, right,
empirical evidence and
100%.
data. The empirical evidence and data shows that there are um, certain people, whether it's age, gender, race, there's certain demographics that really influence who gets arrested. Okay, there are. It's life. But the winners versus the losers in the criminal justice system has nothing to do with race, has nothing to do with gender, has nothing to do with age. It is solely based on socioeconomic factors. Can you afford to hire the best lawyers? It's the quality of representation. And Karen Reed is just showing that. And OJ showed that.
That's the one I
And
was thinking of. That's
right,
exactly where you,
right. And so
what a team
it's
he had put together there. Holy
I
smokes.
know. Oh, the dream team, the original
Yeah,
dream team.
100%.
And so most people aren't going to sit there and plan for an intervening event such as a DUI or a federal indictment, right? Or whatever it may be, or a drunken bar fight. But you want to have the best criminal team, not just
You
lawyer,
have to
but
be able to
team
afford them.
on speed dial. But you also need to know, because we see a lot of people who can afford the best, but they also don't know where to go. They don't know any criminal lawyers, and maybe they're in a rush and they make a poor choice. So whether it's the trusted advisors, knowing through great referrals, or being able to see, somebody, and look, the internet is the internet. So, but you got to do your due diligence and really know what team you're assembling and who you're going into, and having the financial resources to hire them. And in a lot of cases, quickly, because in my work, a lot of what we do is urgent. And we, in our
No
firm,
kidding.
we do
Yeah.
triage. We basically run an ER triage system for what comes up.
Um, okay, so we have, as you know, we're recording this on video. So the folks that are watching, we've included your contact information on the screen. But we have also a lot of people listening on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. And for those folks that are listening in, could you just let us know, what is the best way, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, maybe it's for themselves, for a family, or whatever the case may be, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Right. So if you need legal services, the absolute best way is to just call us 754-206-6200, or to go on our website, Rossen, www.rossenlawfirm.com. We're everywhere. We're easy to find. If anybody wants to connect with me directly, whether it's for, speaking engagement, wanting to talk about business, law, just anything personal or business related that's not about the firm's representation, best way to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm doing a major push on LinkedIn. So you can definitely find me there. Or, you can just email me, Adam@RossenLawFirm.com. I'm very
Perfect.
responsive. We're everywhere. We're easy to find.
Fascinating conversation, Adam. I'm really glad we did this. Really great
Me
conversation,
too.
educational and informative. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. I look forward to bringing you to the Three Questions podcast, and I do hope you find them educational and informative. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channels. And to receive a notification when our latest episode has been posted, please click on the notifications bell. Last but not least, to schedule an online Zoom consultation with me to discuss your wealth management needs, please click on the link in the description box below, www.onecapital.com/meet with Wayne. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.